Welcome back. It's 6:18 and we'll call the Committee of the Whole to order. If there are any disclosures of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof, let us know now or when it comes up. We have consent reports, the agenda, approval of the minutes, Committee of Adjustment minutes, information report, election 2026, and the Freedom of Information summary for 2025. Does anybody want any of those items pulled or have a question about them? Okay, seeing none, can I have a mover and seconder to approve those? Councillor Ferguson and Councillor Holmes, all in favor? And that carries. Thank you. No consultant presentations tonight. We have 2 staff reports, corporate services and finance, write-off uncollectible taxes. Is Director Davis here to speak to that? Director Davis, welcome. We have a recommended motion that Committee of the Whole recommend Council write off taxes on the property described as uncollectible per this Treasurer's report dated March 10, 2026. You want to go ahead and do you have a few
Thank you.
things to say?
I have a few things to say. It should be very quick. We were approached by council for an estate who had been receiving overdue tax notices. They researched the property, which unbeknownst to the owner was still in the name of the estate. So a severance had occurred, but this tiny little parcel had not been part of the severance. Staff reviewed the property. It is landlocked and not accessible. It's a tiny kind of a triangle of property that is on the river, but very, very small. We have looked at the property. It is in a floodplain. It's zoned environmental hazard. We looked at whether acquisition for the purpose of widening the right-of-way would be helpful. It's not. And there is a perceived stewardship responsibility for wetland areas that become municipally owned. So in looking at this property, staff is not recommending that we would proceed with a tax sale or trying to acquire this piece of property. What the estate has requested and what's allowed in the Act is that we write off the uncollectible taxes. At this time, it is not a lot either. I think there's 2003-5527 outstanding on this. Of that, 1,681.20 is the municipal portion. The rest would actually be recovered back from the county and the school boards. The reason that we're hoping to approach it this way is that in 3 years' time, when we go through that tax registration process again, the property will come back to our attention. We'll be able to decide and bring to council whether a further write-off is what they would like to do, or whether we want to look at this property a little bit differently. But we're not recommending that we proceed with tax sale. We think it would be costly and not result in anything, and we'd be right back where we started. So that is that's the recommendation at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Any questions? Councillor Torrance?
Director Davis, I thought it was quite interesting, the whole process of what we're going through. Does this mean it stays on title as belonging to the person who doesn't even think they own it anymore, and they will continue to get tax bills?
That's a very good question, actually. So we do have a few other properties that are in a similar position. The owner is no longer, we don't have contact with the owner. We can't have contact with the owner. And in this case, we know the owner is deceased. It's determined to be probably the best way to deal with it. The Act does allow for it, but council has to approve. So that's why I'm coming to you. I know it seems like a small amount, but taxes can't be written off without council's approval. I hope I'm answering your question.
I guess the question is that every 3 years, the estate of the deceased is going to have to write to you to say what's going on? Is that what the future looks for, that for that family?
Thank you for the clarification. Yes, no. So what we've done with those other properties is we just keep the bills, basically. They come to the municipality because there is nowhere for them to go. So we have a file of the existing properties. We will add this one to that file. So no, the estate will not continue to get notices. And then when it comes 3 years' time, that property will flag for us and we'll know that it's one of these now 6 properties. And then we can come to council for decision making on if things have changed and if there's a different decision that council would like to make. I think in 2021, when the treasurer brought a similar report forward, the request was that the taxes be written off in perpetuity. That was not how the motion read. It was just, you know, at the given time, that's when the taxes are written off. So then they will continue to accrue until we come back. I'm a little nervous about writing taxes off in perpetuity. I think it's nice to have a chance to come back and revisit at some time, but that is something council could direct if that's what they'd like to do.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Director. Do we have a mover and seconder to approve that motion? Councillor Holmes and Councillor Suter, all in favor? And that carries. Thank you very much. Next up is Roads and Public Works with the draft policy for hard surface roadway prioritization for capital renewals. And is Director Smith here? Yeah. The recommended motion is that Committee of the Whole recommend that Council approve the draft policy for hard surface roadway prioritization for capital renewals. And you'll recall that this is brought back. This is the second time it's been in front of us. And we're just waiting for Director Smith. Okay, Director Smith, over to you when you're ready.
The recommendation for this report is that Committee of the Whole recommend that Council approve the hard surface road policy as presented. So once again, we're bringing back the hard surface roadway prioritization with some updates. The draft hard surface roadway prioritization policy was developed by staff to formalize the existing framework used to develop the annual hard surface roadway renewals. Adoption of this policy will establish clear, consistent, transparent approach to prioritizing capital investment in hard surface roadways. And the road investments will be prioritized using pavement condition, life cycle principles, and objective data with clear weighting to ensure consistent, transparent outcomes. The current process that we're doing is an annual road analysis that identifies maintenance and reconstruction priorities based on condition assessments. The proposed road program is presented to council with scope and budget estimates. Multiple decision points allow council oversight, but can slow the process down and create the appearance of bias in decision-making. Works completed with quality control and project management oversight throughout the process. So here's kind of a flow chart of how it works, is that the annual analysis of the roads is completed. It's presented to council for budget approval. The works are tendered. We come back to council with a decision point. If there's any issues, we award the contract, complete the works, and then we also have had opportunities for additional decision points at this point for additional roads. Additional work has been tendered. award a contract and complete of works. So it's, you know, a process where there's multiple decision points. And there is repeated times coming back to council. The proposed new process would be the comprehensive road condition report and budget envelope recommendations is presented to council. Council approves funding based on condition reports, asset management plan principles, and desired service levels. Annual condition assessments update priorities within the pre-approved budget framework, and the director develops a program for the priorities and has oversight by the CAO and treasurer to ensure alignment. How this would flow is the state of the roads would be presented. The budget envelope would be approved by council. The annual analysis of roads would be converted into our priorities, and that would be developed with the oversight by the CAO and the treasurer to ensure it is in alignment with our strategies. The works would be tendered and completed. The process provides a clear, streamlined framework for evaluating municipal roadways that strengthens strategic council oversight and enables staff to execute decisions effectively through a consistent data-driven approach. So this here is where we would hand this over to Kathy.
Thank you. Just wanted to quickly go over the alignment between the asset management plan, our asset management policy, and the budgeting process. So the visual on the left is just kind of a cycle, and we're just speaking about the paved roadways right now. I know there are lots of other things in the asset management plan, but the targeted level of service in the asset management plan for paved roadways is 80%. As of 2024, that was at 62. So you'll all remember we have a strategy of, you know, how to bring that road condition up. The targeted spending in the asset management plan is 3.3 million. In 2026, council approved 2.8. So there is still a bit of a gap there, but we're closing the gap. The budget is developed from those the asset management plan recommendations. And then as Corey was speaking to, once that budget envelope is decided, then he can go through his priority list and basically tender using that. What we wanted to highlight for council was where the approval points are currently versus where we were proposing with this new policy they would be. So really it would only be needing to be reviewed and considered by council in the budgeting process and in the budgeting envelope. But another point of data for council would be how we're doing on the levels of service. So the conversation was, you know, if we suddenly find ourselves reaching a target that's above that 80%, then that could be a signal or a flag for council around how much is being invested through the budget. So we thought it's better to use that data and use a more kind of long-term forward-looking strategic approach to approving that budget envelope based on the levels of service, which according to the OREG 588-17 under the asset management plan, we will be bringing back to council annually. So you'll be able to see our progress towards those targets. So just a quick overview of how we align that policy that actually council saw just a few weeks ago, the asset management plan, and what Corey's speaking to. Thanks.
At this point, we're welcome to entertain any questions that you may have.
Okay, Councillor Holmes?
Thank you. So I guess for me, the question is, where does operations actually take over and council gives that process off to operations? Like, to me right now, I think you come, my understanding, you come and say, these are the roads that we have prioritized, and I understand you'd use a framework from the asset management. And then we would have a discussion with you about which ones would fit into the budget that we were planning on providing. You know, although we have targets, sometimes things interfere with those targets, sometimes negatively, sometimes positively. But with the new process, I think what happens is we approve X number of dollars and then operations decides what roads will be done. Is that right?
To a certain degree. Through the chair, this procedure would empower staff to have a framework that council approves to determine the roads and their prioritizations. That would be fair, transparent, and consistent. The framework is spelled out in the policy. And at that point, the roads that are chosen would be as per that determination and would be brought forward within that envelope. Yes.
So to clarify, you're saying operation would determine what those roads are versus right now council has input into it. Is that correct?
What I'm saying is operations using the data and the framework approved by council, should this be approved, would be determined by operations.
So I guess I always saw asset management as a framework that informed the council or the board or whatever organization it was in making decisions on how money would be spent, but it would be informed by that data. So I think maybe my thinking is not correct here, but I think that as a counselor, people phone me and say, you know, my road's as bad as that person. I want to be able to give them a good, solid answer as to why, you know, their road, which is maybe as bad or maybe as good or as the one that's done. So I guess I have a problem with where does council's authority stop and operation begins, knowing that we need to be informed by the asset management plan on, you know, the advice you're giving us. Anyway, thank you. That's just my opinion, and maybe other people have different ones.
Thank you. I'll go to Mayor Lowry in a second, but maybe I can rephrase Councillor Holmes' question in a way that makes sense to me, at least. If a councillor felt there was an error in what was appointed to be done in a certain year, how would that be addressed? Is there a mechanism for that to be addressed? Would it be a notice of motion? I think maybe I'm just wondering if there is a problem, understanding that we're not talking about the people here ever, we're talking about the position, right? If there ever was a problem, how do we address it as councillors?
Well, through the chair, I would think you're correct. Like a notice of motion would be an option to bring that forward, but kind of going back to what Director Smith was saying, and you know, I think what Councillor Holmes was asking as well, like how do you answer a question with a resident? And I don't think the answer is, well, staff made the decision. I think the answer is the data was evaluated and looked at, and you know, whether it's the pavement condition index or it's the asset condition, you're using the data to say, well, this road is in this shape. It's a good, a fair, or a bad, you know, our categorization. And that's what the decisions are based on. And I think what the director is saying is the policy says how we make those decisions. The data is derived. The outcome is it's the outcome, right? It's not, staff aren't going to manipulate it. It's going to be, the data is going to give you the outcome. So in the discussions with residents, I think the issue is if it's entirely a council decision, well, that means you're not using the data.
Yeah.
So if you're going to have a data-driven policy or a data-driven process, you have to let the data drive the decision, which is if the pavement condition index says it's this road, then the pavement condition index says it's this road. It's not, well, we get to talk about it and decide whether we use the data this time or not.
Right.
Right.
Okay. So we're
I would think,
taking
yeah,
a
notice of motion. So thank
oh,
you.
sorry. We're taking something that was fairly subjective and making it objective and using council in our role as policymakers to direct staff. Okay. Did you want to follow up? Just to
Yeah,
make sure you're
I do, because
comfortable?
that's not what I mean at all. The thing is that I think staff are quite capable of using the asset management process to inform staff, to recommend to council the roads that should be done. But Road A and Road B might be the same, you know, needing the same kind of repair. So, you know, I'll get asked, why was Road A done and not Road B? And yes, I can say it's data-driven and all that, but I can also say it was, I made my decision based on the data provided by operations. And I go back to the fact is, where does operations stop or start, and where does council stop or start? That's all I'm trying to find out. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we can come back if everybody's not comfortable, but we'll go to Mayor Lowry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I actually really appreciate how this came back, because I think I understood where staff were coming from with this first time around, but this made it a lot clearer for me in the sense that, like, I think I understand where you're coming from, Councillor Holmes, in wanting to make sure you understand sort of where that line is and how do we provide information back to residents. This is one of the things we get probably the most questions about, particularly in the spring. But what gives me a lot of confidence here is that I can say council has approved this envelope of money, and we're saying yes to the staff that we want to see this be a data-driven decision-making process, rather than one that could slip in, and I'm not saying anyone at this table, but I'm saying could slip into a political decision or prioritizing things not based on data. And one of the things that is so challenging is there's a lot of those data pieces that I would say are probably changing. And I mean, the director can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but like, I'm thinking about service level as something that we have ultimate control over. And if we're feeling like service levels are rising to a point that we really can't afford to continue to maintain, or if service levels, because we're getting too many complaints or seeing things that we're not comfortable with, if those service levels are falling, I feel like we have the opportunity as the decision makers to adjust as we feel is appropriate. But then the other side is the collection of data. So whether it's road condition or if it's emerging needs, and we all see how the freeze-thaw cycle is affecting our roads so much, so drastically. But then the other piece, the third piece that I'm thinking about with this is unit costs. And over the last 8 or 10 years, those costs have fluctuated enormously. So the way I'm seeing this is, we're setting what our service level is. We're setting the bucket of money that we're willing to spend, knowing that we have full rights to change that if we feel like it is not it's not in play in the way we want to see services, too high or too low. Because one of the things that is challenging for me is how you answer those questions. I think I may be asking this or feeling about the same question as you are, Bev, Councillor Holmes, excuse me. But I'm taking it more as this gives me some confidence to be able to point to, here are the inputs and here's how things decided. And maybe there will be some decisions or some results of the data is maybe a better way to say, where a lot of things could be very close. But I'm kind of leaning towards the feeling that if we can show through life cycle conditions, the asset management plan, like if we can show that these decisions are being made in a consistent way that are data driven, I feel like we've got a much less complicated process. I mean, this looks worse than the planning processes when, I don't know, what's that slide number 5 or so that went up there? Like that was a very complicated process. And I feel like we're moving towards something that gives council the control over the things that I think are the most important for us to have, which is service levels, which is the amount of money that we're willing to spend on these repairs. And I think maybe the one question I have, let me get the page number here of the report. Oh, shoot. I had it right here and now it's closed. Okay, so in the actual policy itself, there, and it was close to the end, the prioritization was listed there. I'm not sure if I'm seeing the same things that you're seeing from where you are at the moment, but I'm wondering if either Kathy or Corey, if you can describe like how is that going to get presented to council? Like when in the cycle does that get provided to us? I would imagine it's either part of budget or ahead of budget, but then how can that information be provided to the public? Because that might be part of the answer that helps when we get the calls and people are trying to understand how decisions were made. If we can show, you know, here's the data, here's how things come together for decision making. And I wonder if either of the directors have a response for that. I can get the page number here if that helps.
Go ahead.
So I don't have the report up on here. Sorry. I have the presentation. My apologies.
Here, let me pull. I had it up too. I just have one screen, so I'm trying to make it work. I'll pull it up here just a second.
Do you have the page number, Mayor Lowry?
Yeah, I'm just almost there. I think it's 30. I think it's
37?
36. Yeah, 36 to 37. Yes, so 37. So 5.2.3. I'm wondering how that gets shared, like with us, like when in a year does it get shared with us? And when or how could that be shared with the public? Because I think that might be the little missing nugget here.
Sorry, I had it on and then I turned it off again.
That's okay.
For the purposes of this, the priority list. So I'll start a little earlier. Every road is assessed for its condition, as well as other priority factors as described in the report and and in the procedure or policy. Sorry. And at that point, the priority listing is developed in conjunction with the treasurer and the CAO. The works would then be tendered to get our idea of what projects would be done. And then the list would be published to the public for their understanding of the projects to be completed. Council would receive it as well as an information report.
Okay. Okay, that helps. Thank you for that clarity.
Okay. Councillor Suter and then Councillor Torrance and then Councillor Ferguson.
Okay, first a comment and then a question. The comment is that the document that we were provided in this agenda is very, very different than the document that was draft 1 that was produced for the previous iteration, which I think was February 10th. And that document was over 11 pages long and had a number of tables in it, including one called the Priority List for 2026 Hard Surfaced Renewal Program, which was page 130 of 192. It also tried to do 4 things in one presentation. This time, we're dealing with simply the policy, is the explanation of what was to be done. And much of what was in the original one was procedure. And what we're lacking tonight is this table that was produced for us of 50 projects, which included not only the ones which the department expected to be able to reach within the budget. But also, well, a dozen below that might be possible to do should conditions allow it, whether tenders came in at less. Having said that, could we possibly at the next meeting receive a copy of this year's priority list for our consideration and for information?
Can just a point of clarity. So what we're talking about tonight is just the policy, not the 2026 items, which were part of the budgeting process. Yeah. So I just, as long as we can make that clear, could we have the 2026 list, understanding that it's not directly related to what we're approving tonight?
My answer to that would be this. That list was developed using the framework of this policy. If that is not the direction I am given, I will have to rearrange the list to be in alignment with the direction I'm given. But as I said, that was developed in alignment with this policy. So yes, I would be more than happy to provide that.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you very much. A follow-up?
And then when he does provide that, we are at one of the decision points which was described in the presentation tonight. So we would have that data that they have worked on.
That's not my understanding. So my understanding is that we're talking about approving the policy that will be used every year from here on out. The 2026 roads were created using this policy in advance. I think what the director is saying is if we don't approve this policy, he'll have to go back to the drawing board and the list might change. I think maybe what he's also saying is the way the policy reads, we don't get a say in each individual road. We get the pocket of money and the service level and the asset management plan together to direct staff. Am I wrong? No. That's correct? Okay.
That is correct.
One more follow-up and then, yeah, we'll move on to Councillor Torrance.
Okay, having said that, it was not my intention that if this was brought back, that we would then scrutinize line by line. That never. As far as I'm concerned, this is information, but it gives us the opportunity to ask why, because we don't have the data and Mr. Smith can provide it at that time so that we are comfortable with being able to explain it to the public.
Yep. That's okay with you? We've said we're going to provide the report, so that's good. Okay, we'll move on to Councillor Torrance. Thank you.
Well, I think that if what Councillor Suter just noted, if that were to happen, I think I'd be happy, but that's not what's going to happen because we only decision point we have is up be at budget time. And Mr. Smith had just said that he will provide us with something at the same time the public gets it. So we will have no more decision. We won't be able to ask whether about what the data was or how he came to that decision. It will be as a report, as for information only, not for decisions. So it will probably be on one of those quarterly things that we don't get to talk about it in public in the open council. But like I think that the framework based on data is great, and I think we need to move towards that. But I don't think it's where does council have decision-making ability and where does staff have decision-making ability? And I think that this framework puts us at odds with each other, which I don't think is a good way to go forward. I think that it will be divisive actually. And because it comes back to us just for information, we haven't been able to the reasoning behind it, because we don't have something to say, you know, this was, we graded this because of that, you know, we're not seeing so much the work. I think that council, when we're elected, we're representing public interest, and we need to be able to represent public interest. And that comes with data. It comes with making decisions based on trying not to make decisions based on with political stance, but to be able to be shown what the data is and then to make a good decision. So like Councillor Holmes, I want to be able to say to people when they ask me that I knew about the decision, first of all, because this, I don't know about the decision. I've approved money, but I don't know about the decision. But I knew about the decision, and I agreed with the decision. And it might not be their favorite decision that's made, but I will be able to stand behind the decision. I can't see with this framework that I will be able to stand behind the decision. So that's how I'm feeling about it, is that I think that it takes away the role of council and gives the council's authority to staff in that. I don't think it needs to be 100%.
Councillor Ferguson, you were next.
Yes, thank you. Well, I agree with the questions and the comments that have been given. I'm dead on that, because the last meeting I left here confused in a priorities list. I thought in my own mind, I've been around this place long enough that I have a pretty good appreciation of the roads in the municipality, and I was totally confused. I knew there were some of them, and I've received three calls in reference to that. And I couldn't answer them. I was waiting until we find out. And I would like, much like Councillor Suter, would see the priorities list again and review it. I hope we would. And at that time, yes, I'm sure it won't change a lot, but at least we will have a better appreciation on the status of what they are in our own minds, and then take it from there. And I can appreciate the framework. I know we have to have policy, and I appreciate that. But I agree that we have to look at, I think, what's going to be done and in anticipation of what that is.
Okay, thank you. We have Deputy Mayor and then Mayor Lowry.
Yes, I have to disagree with Councillor Torrance. I think that the service review is a great way for the roads and to prioritize the roads. You have your information in front of you. The people that phone and complain about the roads are not experts on roads. It could have been a bad day for them or something. They just want to complain to somebody about something. So I agree with Corey, and one of the reasons I think why we're doing this is so we don't have this conversation about roads, every single road, who's going to do it, how we're going to do it, if there's curbs, if there's sidewalks. That's not the role of council, I don't think. I think approving the budget and micromanaging isn't the role of council. So, Corey, I think you're on the right track. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Lowry?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think the Deputy Mayor said it actually really well. And it's really important to me that I understand where there's disagreement here on this one. Because it's either we want to be involved and make ourselves sort of the road experts, which I know none of us think of ourselves as that. And I don't think that's what people are suggesting. But I'd like to understand a little bit better with the comments that have been made, if it's that we're wanting to have control over the decisions, which I think we're not road experts, and I would be much more comfortable basing this on service standards that we set and on data, on evidence. But what I'm wondering if I'm hearing is it's actually wanting to understand the evidence, wanting to understand the data. Like, here's the prioritization list and here's how we got there because of these points, so that we all have that confidence to go and answer the questions that come and whatnot. But I think Deputy Mayor is correct. Like we all get complaints from folks, and there's no lack of roads that need attention. So, I mean, that's just the truth of the matter of working in municipal government like this. But I'm uncomfortable with a process that would have council kind of manipulating, and I don't want to say manipulate, suggesting anyone here would do that. I don't mean it to sound that way. But if we have a prioritization list that staff have put together based on evidence and based on data, and then it comes to us to kind of tweak, that's not data-based anymore. That does get into something that's more subjective, which is what we're trying to move away from. So I guess, Madam Chair, my question is to those who are uncomfortable here, and I just want to make sure I'm understanding where the discomfort is. And is it a matter of wanting like the data sets, where that information is coming from, like making sure that that's really clearly described to us so that we then can help when we get the phone calls, because we're all going to get them, if we can then explain, well, this is what it was based upon, and it's also based upon the service levels that we have as a group decided upon, and on that envelope amount that we've all agreed upon. So I might leave it there, and I don't know if there's an answer to that from anyone around the table, but I want to make sure I'm understanding what the hiccup is here, because I don't think I get it just yet.
I think Corey, could you please bring up the, sorry, Director, could you bring up the process chart or the process points? And I'm wondering if we can just add an annual report where we are taken through the decision-making data points for this. Is it up there?
Through the chair, the decision-making data points would be part of the state of the roads as presented.
Okay, so if we can build in there that the state of the roads presented and includes an explanation of what the data points are and how they're decided on. Councillor Torrance, can you?
Well, I think it's actually between priorities developed and tender and award works. I think that's when we need to present to council in a report that comes to council that is telling us it's not necessarily for decision, but it is a presented report, not a tabled report, not something that's in a quarterly report, but that's actually there that tells us that's how we can explain things to our residents. And we can back the department on the decisions, because we understand where the priorities, because we're saying the priorities are being developed outside of, like we're saying in this, that there are new priorities being developed every year. I'm not understanding that, because I thought that the priorities were already, or are they priority projects identified? Is that really what that means? But that we are able to receive that in open council before it goes to the public, so that we have that information, that we can understand it 100%. So when we get asked by the public, and when we're the ones that have to defend it, like it's easy to say that we give the budget, but we're the ones that have to defend the decision, and not to the public. And so I would like, as the person who has to defend it, to actually understand it better between those two steps.
Okay, thank you. Can I just go to the CAO and the clerks? What would we have to change in order to build that in? And then to council, does that satisfy our issues if that is built in?
To the chair, I mean, if you want to add a step in here that there's a report back, I mean, that can be incorporated into the policy, and you can carry this forward tonight. That's not really an issue as just an add-on. I mean, I'm sure you can just policy as amended, add a report back, add step 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Whichever step
Presented.
you want, right?
How would we say presented report in
presented.
council, in open council?
Yeah.
Okay.
So just amend the policy and
Good.
presented. If I could, Chair, I'd just say kind of 2 additional things. I think one of the problems that we have in the process as it's been developed is it creates an expectation early on in the process when you're talking about these prioritization lists and you don't actually have tendered costs, that you're actually going to do some work that you really don't know you're going to do. And this year is probably a really good example of potentially how bad it can be. A budget was presented in the fall. You have oil prices going through the roof, which is going to change the unit costs. And you have an expectation that you're going to complete 1 to 10 roads. And you have no idea what the true costs of what the contractors are going to bid in order to do this work. So you could potentially end up telling people, yeah, we're going to do your road, and you're not going to do the road. And, the treatment of the road and what you're actually going to do to it does impact this. So what we're doing is we're pushing the actual publication of what the work plan is after the tender process, when you can actually say, yes, we are doing these 5 roads, and that's what the budget allows. And I think when we're looking at a list and you're approving a budget envelope, I think the answers to the public are, we're going to do as much as we can, because that's what the director has done in the past. When we've come back and said we have more money and you have another round of decisions to make, that seemed to be a complicating factor. So what the suggestion is we're going to give you a list of roads, tell you the data on it, right? That's your status of roads presented, and some additional information. We're going to keep building those roads up so that we know what the actual condition is, whether it's a freestyle or whatever. But we're actually going to give the definitive list after it's been tendered and we know what we can do. And therefore, we're not creating any false expectations that something can be done. We're going to say, this is the list that's going to be done in 2026. And we know we can commit to it. So thank you, Chair.
So just so I'm understanding, are you saying that the report back to council will be at the end after tender and award?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Just want to make sure I understand.
That's my suggestion, Chair.
Okay. Councillor Holmes?
Thank you. So I guess one of the confusions I have with this is the state of the roads presented, and then the budget's approved, and then you do the analysis. Why would the analysis not come instead of the state of the roads? Why would it not be an annual analysis of the road, the budget envelope approved, priorities developed, and then tender and awards? Like I don't understand the difference between the state of the roads presented and the annual analysis.
Director?
The state of the roads presented is based on the information after the completion of the works from the previous year. The annual assessment of the roads is based on the road conditions at the time of developing the finalized list to tender. As we know, roads can change from time to time, and we had an example of concession 7B Ramsey. There's 7B Ramsey years ago, where it was supposed to be done 3 years into the future, and it distorted over the winter, and it had to be bumped up.
So is it a timing? It is a timing thing. It's a timing thing. You won't know the condition of the roads until after the.
It will be very similar to what we present in the state of the roads, but there are changes that can occur.
Okay. Councillor Suter, and then maybe we'll go back.
Okay, that answer has to me just underlined my desire to get the list at this time of year, as opposed to last August or September, or be presented with a final list somewhere around next April or May, once all the tendering was done. I have never suggested in any of my statements that we would get to pick apart the list presented by Public Works. I found the list that was presented a month ago very instructive. And all the learning I've had in the last 3 or 4 years about life cycle management and about data collection has informed this chart, this priority list. And I can remember at the very beginning 2 urban roads from a fairly recent subdivision were on a list for restoration work. And in fact, it was slurry seal. Well, first of all, I had no idea what a slurry seal was, and I had no idea where it fit into a life cycle management program. And I had no idea why those were chosen. But having learned some more, I recognize it, and I can recognize the reasons that are behind this list that were created by Public Work, that was created by Public Works. And I don't want to denigrate this. I do think it's important information for us to get roughly at this time of year.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
if I can try to summarize, we are all wanting some sort of information before the public gets it so that we understand it well enough to support Public Works in the decisions that are being made. I'm not sure we landed on where to put that report. Do we? What makes the most, what is actually physically possible from your end, Corey, in terms of your process?
Or I'm just trying to.
No, it's okay. Understanding, again, nobody
So-
needs to pick it apart. We just want to be able to understand it goes live.
What I might suggest,
Thank you. We'll go to the clerk.
My recommendation, based on hearing some of the discussion and the fluctuation of the quality of the roads based on the seasonal changes and wear and tear, is that an annual council report take place during the annual road analysis or after that is done. And it'd be is that feasible, Corey? Just because I was thinking that it doesn't make much sense to put it in earlier because that September list might be very different than the April list.
so the assessment of the roads takes place over a long period of time. We often don't get finished it till September, October, because we have to drive each road. That's where the state of the roads comes from, including the updates based on the works that were done. We do a, what's the word I'm looking for? Assessment of that. So confirmation, can we call it a confirmation report?
Yeah.
Of the, a confirmation report of the state of the roads can be presented to council before we do the tendering.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying, Corey,
Yeah.
that step.
Yeah.
I want to say it was step 4. If you can bring it back up, it's.
Councillor Holmes in the meantime?
So I think I'm a bit confused again.
Yeah.
I'm a bit confused again. So, you know, what happens on a regular basis, and I don't believe it can happen anymore because of the strong mayor legislation, but we were asked often to pre-approve roads so that Public Works could go out early to tender. So I'm wondering, so that will no longer be. That early tender, we will not be asked to pre-approve. And do we even pre-approve? Now, do we even approve tender?
The approval of the budget framework and envelope gives us authority to tender based on the list, the priorities list. Then council does come back in as per our procurement policy to approve the award of contract.
So there are 2 points then where council has the approval. And I'm thinking maybe that Councillor Holmes where the question of, and Councillor Torrance, where does council and staff take and operations takes over is in that tendering is now we're policy and you take that policy and turn it into tenders for work. And the report, I think, is, are we comfortable with what was put on there? No, you're still, okay, go ahead.
So we go back, we've just heard that the analysis of the road may take until next fall, which is when we do the budgeting process. So I go back to the annual analysis of the road instead of statement of the road, budget envelope approved, priorities developed, priorities developed and then the budget approved. And I don't think in my whole term here of being on council, and I've been here now 7 going on 8 years, there has never been a political decision around roads. It's always been good, fruitful discussion with staff on, what should be done. And sometimes council will make a suggestion, but we listen to the staff. And I'm offended to have a policy that assures that I don't do political interference. I go back to the fact that where does operations take over from council? Thank you.
Okay, I think we've had a lot of discussion. Can we see what the clerk put up? And I'm going to ask if anybody is comfortable making that motion. So the recommended motion is, can you guys hear me? That committee of the whole direct staff to amend the draft policy to include an annual council report to provide an overview of the annual analysis of roads, and that committee of the whole recommend that council approve the draft policy for the hard surface roadway prioritization for capital renewals as amended. Is there a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Suter?
I'll second it.
And Deputy Mayor Manelli. And unless there's any other, Councillor Ferguson, do you want?
Yeah, I would
okay.
like to see something added to that, and it's what the CAO had said, is that, yes, now we have these lists and that type of thing, and I appreciate, and I'm not one to start tweaking, but by the same token, it's very true that we have no control over costs on the roads as they come in, and this year particularly, cost of everything going up as oil, as we all know. However, could we insert something that we would see that final list before it goes out? I'm not that we would tweak it, but at least we would then know that these are the ones and exactly what we could say.
That's what this is.
That's what it says?
Well, that's what the intention is.
Is it?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's my understanding of it.
It would be further on in the process. So you see the,
Okay, if that's the intent of it, because I agree.
like, I
exactly.
have to defer to the director. I don't want to speak.
Okay.
I don't know anything about roads. I just know about procedure. So I don't want to make, shockingly, I'm not an expert on road conditions.
No, I'm more concerned about the final list after the tenders have been received. Because there's going to be significant fluctuation, I think, from that original list over the tendered list, as I think the CEO made reference to. Yeah.
Councillor Torrance.
I just need to see where we think this step is going to fit into that chart. That's very confusing
Okay.
because there's a lot of duplication of steps, I think.
Director?
Just to go back to Councillor Ferguson's comment, sorry. At the time that we bring forward a report or award of contract, because we have to remember all the tenders aren't going to close on the same day. The list of roads that are being completed under that particular contract can be included in that report.
Good.
So
Councillor
do you
Torrance?
just answer it that it will come at the end? That will be the last step, is that report? Is that what your intention is, Corey?
From my understanding, the direction I'm getting for the one amendment is we present the state of the roads at the end of our analysis. We are going to provide a confirmatory report that we have done our assessment before we do our tendering to confirm the roads are still in the shape that we thought they were. And if any changes had to be made in that confirmatory report, it will be noted. And that will just be an information report coming back to council. And then the works would then be tendered. And then at the time when tender is coming to council for award, we will note the roads that are being awarded on that report. So that then after all the works have been tendered, a final report will go out as an information report to council and the public, saying here is the finalized list. The other thing I'd like to comment on is based on these procedures and going on the envelope, it would allow us to tender earlier in the year because we would not be having to come back for as many touch points before we had our list of roads for the program approved. The roads would be tendered in a much more rapid manner.
Okay. I think we're ready to wrap up.
I just need some clarity because I've heard two different things. We're having two different reports, so there's going to be an additional 5.5. Step 5 is going to be report, and there's going to be a step 7, a final report. So that's what Corey's just said. So we're having 2 additional reports, correct?
That's my understanding from what the director said. Yes.
That would be one additional report. Interim information would come out at the award of tender report coming to council, but that is just that is not related to the policy itself. It just aids in understanding.
Okay, I think we're going to wrap this up. Understanding that policies are living documents, and the council of the day next year could revisit this if the policy isn't working for us. This isn't something that is set in stone for 50 years from now. And having said that, and Corey, I do have to say I appreciate you bringing this forward because I understand that you're trying to take the subjectivity out of it and the difficulty for councillors in trying to defend something that is subjective. So I appreciate the fact that we will have data to use to be able to point to why things are being done. Having said all of that, I think we're ready to go to a vote. So we've had a mover and seconder for the amended motion. Yes? All right. All in favor? And all opposed? And I forgot the count. What are we at? 4 and 2, so that carries. Yes? All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Director. That was a tough one. Okay. All right, so we have no notices of motion. We're at quarterly reports, the project management office Q1 update. If anybody has any questions, they can speak with the deputy clerk. Yes. Yep. Or the CAO or the clerk, whomever you can get hold of. So on to information items H1A and B. There is a letter from MP Scott Reid regarding his opposition to Alto. And we also have B, Ministry of Labor, Immigration Training and Skills Development. And that is a follow-up letter thanking us for our presentation at Roma. Is there anything someone would like to pull from those for discussion? Councillor Torrance?
Could we ask staff to actually give us something about what we think the implications are for Mississippi Mills for the Alto high-speed rail? Councillor Suter and I were able to attend the open house and talk to the representatives there. And I just wanted to know what staff has, there is no identified route, but what the potential could be for Mississippi Mills.
Mm-hmm. Councillor Holmes?
Thank you. Yeah. And I think one of the concerns that I would like to see in that report is how many roads are going to be dead-ended as a result of this track going through.
Or potentially dead-ended.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. We also, quite a few different things, right? Emergency response, the impact on that, drainage, conflict with our local planning objectives. So I think what I'd like to ask is if we could refer this back to staff, and possibly, because comments are due by March 31st, could we add this as a time-sensitive agenda item for council on the 24th? Is that okay? Do we need that in a motion, or is that direction?
Direction to staff is fine.
Okay, all right, so we'll see that come back. Deputy Mayor?
Just I received an email from Scott Reed's office. The decision's going to be made and they're going to appear at county council in April sometime. I don't know the exact date, but there's two routes, I guess, a northern and southern route, and they're going to decide which one they're going to go with. If they go with the northern one, there won't be much impact on Lanark County.
Yeah. In April, you said?
The other way around?
The other way around, I was gonna
Yeah,
say the
southern-
southern route.
sorry.
Yeah. Okay, well then, more important than ever that our information, our comments get sent in before March 31st, so. All right, we will send that back to staff and look forward to that at the next meeting. And. All right, so the mayor has had to leave, so we won't have a mayor's report. County councilor's report, deputy mayor, is there anything?
Yes, just a couple of quick things. We approved the tax ratios for 2026, and for 10.6 million, you can buy Lanark County. Billion, I'm sorry. You
Say,
can buy, and they have a new operating mobile team for, it's called LIFT, to help the homeless with drug rehab and stuff like that. It's not an emergency thing. It's just something that they're starting out very slowly. So it's not
Okay.
you don't call for emergency.
Okay.
And oh, they're going to change the name of Highway 43 for some reason.
Okay,
Some strange reason.
okay.
I guess to do all the work on it. I don't know. They want to change it to Drummond, North Emsley and Montague Townships Road.
Okay,
Great.
thank you very much.
That's my report.
Councillor Torrance, did you have a question?
Deputy Mayor, can you, I know that we talked before Christmas about what the list was going to look like if we had a common list for daycare. And I've seen now that there's been press announcements that it's now in place. And so I would like to know what the, how it's going to work, and will the names that were on the original lists still stand before the new list takes place? I think that might be what I understand, but not completely. So I don't understand how the new list is going to work.
I will get some clarification tomorrow at the meeting. I missed the agenda review on Friday because of technical difficulties, and I was going to ask the question about how come it was approved ahead of time without coming back to council. And I didn't get there, so.
Okay, thank you very
And
much.
that's my fault.
Thank you very much. Well, it's just I was surprised to see it on social media when I thought that that Mississippi Mills was going.
I had the same concerns too, so thank you. And I will get back to you on that.
Thank you for that. So Mississippi Valley Conservation? Anything to report?
Did you want to go ahead and? do
Councillor
your
Suter
report
then?
Yes, there is some relatively new, timely, and important information that came out in a press conference this morning and does impact the next year and a half in terms of the new regional conservation authorities. The first point is that what were originally going to be 7 regions have been increased to 9. And that means for us that instead of having 5 CAs lumped, there are 4, which makes more sense. they're left with the MVCA, Rideau Valley, South Nation, and Raisin region, which basically all drain into the Ottawa River. And the bottom one, the Raisin, is in the Cornwall area. So that is what the makeup will be. They will have a transition team established, or a transition committee established for each region that will start very soon. And they have asked each of the 4 CAs to appoint someone, and they're looking for CAOs or general managers to be on that transition commission. And the end of phase 1 will be February 1st, 2027. And proposed legislation will transfer all assets, agreements, etc., to the new region to minimize legal work. And governance will be shifted from the municipal level to county levels. That's about it. There will be more. There will be stuff on the news. There will be more in the future. They have, the one last thing is the province has come up with $3 million in year 1 to support transition committees. They have also approved $20 million to start up the Ontario Provincial Conservation Agency. That's it, as of today.
Thank you. So does that mean no more tier 2 counselors on boards? It will be tier 1? Yeah, okay.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
The makeup will change so that I think we would have about 5 representatives on this
Okay.
18 to 20 person board.
Okay. Thank you very much. Lanark County Police Services.
Yes, nothing. The next meeting is on the 18th. And the reports from the last meeting should be out this week.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Same for the library board. I have a meeting tomorrow, assuming it's not canceled.
Tomorrow, it just got
I think we're doing it online. I think we're still doing it online, so I'll report back next time. Have a look at the meeting calendar. Are there any changes, questions? All good? Okay. Seeing that, there is no new business, so we are adjourned at 7:31. Thanks, everybody.